The fluorescent lights hummed overhead like dying insects, casting harsh shadows across Detective Marcus Rivera's weathered face. He'd been a cop for 15 years, worked hundreds of interrogations, but something about this one felt different. Across from him sat a woman who had said exactly 7 words in the past 4 hours. "I want to speak to a lawyer." Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. Her name, according to the booking sheet, was Elena Vasquez. Age 32, no known address. No identification beyond a fake driver's license that had fooled the patrol officers, but wouldn't survive a deeper investigation. She'd been picked up 3 blocks from the Westside National Bank after a robbery that had netted the perpetrators nearly $2 million in unmarked bills. What bothered Marcus wasn't her silence. Plenty of suspects clamped up when they hit the interrogation room. What bothered him was how she sat, perfectly straight, hands folded precisely at 10 and 2 o'clock, breathing controlled and measured. Most people fidgeted, tapped their fingers, shifted in their seats, avoided eye contact. This woman could have been meditating in a Buddhist temple. Her appearance was unremarkable in the way that felt deliberately crafted. Medium height, dark hair pulled back in a simple ponytail, wearing jeans and a plain gray sweater that looked like they came from any department store. No jewelry except for a simple silver watch. No tattoos visible. No distinctive features that would make her memorable to witnesses. It was the kind of anonymity that didn't happen by accident. "Look, Elena, can I call you Elena?" Marcus leaned forward, using his practiced sympathetic tone, the one that had convinced dozens of suspects that he was on their side. "We've got you on camera 2 blocks from the scene. Your prints are on a coffee cup found in the getaway car. This isn't going away." Elena's dark eyes remained fixed on a point somewhere past his left shoulder, as if she was studying something fascinating on the wall behind him. Not defiant, not scared, just present, like she was waiting for something or someone. Her breathing never changed rhythm. Marcus tried for another hour, cycling through techniques that had broken hardened criminals and first-time offenders alike. The good cop routine, where he offered coffee and expressed understanding for whatever circumstances had led her here. The angry cop routine, where he slammed his hand on the table and raised his voice about the security guard who was still in the hospital with a concussion. The disappointed father figure approach, where he talked about wasted potential and poor choices. Elena absorbed it all with the same unsettling calm, never once meeting his eyes directly, never once changing her posture or breathing pattern. It was like interrogating a statue that occasionally blinked. "She's not talking," Marcus told his partner, Detective Sarah Chun, during a coffee break in the hallway outside the interrogation room. Sarah was younger, sharper around the edges, with an analytical mind that complemented his more intuitive approach. 4 hours, and I've got nothing. It's like she's not even there." Sarah glanced through the one-way glass at their suspect, who sat in exactly the same position she'd maintained since being brought in. "Maybe she doesn't speak English well. The name sounds Hispanic, and you know how some people shut down when they're scared and can't communicate properly. Her English is perfect when she asks for that lawyer. Slight accent, but her grammar and pronunciation are flawless. This is something else." Marcus rubbed his temples, feeling the beginning of a headache. Run her prints again. Expand the search parameters. And call the Fed. Something about this feels bigger than a simple bank job. While they waited for results, Marcus studied the case file. The robbery itself had been professional but strange. 3 perpetrators, all masked, had entered the bank at exactly 2:47 p.m. during the shift change for security guards. They'd known which cameras to avoid, which teller stations had the most cash, and exactly how long they had before police response. But instead of grabbing everything they could, they'd targeted specific safety deposit boxes and made off with cash from particular accounts. It felt targeted, surgical. Marcus tried one more approach. He entered the room carrying a thick file. Folder mostly blank pages and unrelated case documents, but suspects didn't need to know that. It was an old psychological trick. People assumed thick files meant overwhelming evidence. Your partners left you behind, Elena. The car was found abandoned in a parking garage 6 blocks away. No sign of the money. No sign of your accomplices. They took everything and ran. He slammed the folder down on the metal table, the sound echoing off the cinder block walls. You're looking at 25 to life for armed robbery, assault on a security officer, and whatever else the DA decides to throw at you. And for what? Loyalty to people who threw you away like garbage? For the first time in 4 hours, Elena's gaze shifted to meet his directly. Her eyes held something Marcus couldn't quite identify. Not fear or anger, but a kind of tired recognition. Like she'd seen this exact scenario play out before and knew how it would end. "They didn't leave me behind," she said quietly. Her voice carried a slight accent that Marcus now realized wasn't Mexican or Central American, but something European. Eastern European, maybe. "I stayed behind." Before Marcus could process that statement fully, Sarah burst through the door, her face pale and her usually perfect hair disheveled. "We need to talk, now outside." In the hallway, Sarah grabbed Marcus's arm with more force than necessary. "The prince came back. She's not Elena Vasquez." "Fake identity, I figured that much. Marcus, she's federal. Interpol agent Katerina. Novak, deep cover assignment for the past 3 years. The bank job? According to my contact at the FBI, it was part of an ongoing international investigation." Marcus felt the ground shift beneath him, like when you miss a step going downstairs. That's impossible. If she's a federal agent, why didn't she identify herself when she was arrested? Why the silence routine? "Because," Sarah continued, checking her notes and speaking in quick, clipped sentences. "According to my contact at the Federal Task Force, her cover was blown 2 days ago. The people she was investigating found out she was law enforcement. The bank robbery was supposed to be her extraction, a planned way to get arrested and pulled out safely from whatever organization she'd infiltrated. So the robbery was real? Real. Money, real crime, but apparently orchestrated by federal agents as part of the extraction protocol. Except something went wrong. Her handler says she missed 2 scheduled check-ins, and they lost all contact with her 18 hours ago." Sarah paused, lowering her voice. "Marcus, they think she might have been compromised. Or worse, that she went rogue and decided to keep the money for herself." When Marcus returned to the interrogation room, he looked at Elena Katerina with completely different eyes. The calm wasn't resignation or shock. It was calculation. She wasn't waiting for a lawyer. She was waiting to see who knew what, and how much danger she was in. "Agent Novak," he said simply, settling back into his chair. And studying her reaction, her posture didn't change by so much as a millimeter, but something flickered behind her eyes. A quick calculation maybe, or recognition that a new phase of whatever game she was playing had just begun. "I don't know anyone by that name," she replied, her voice steady. 3 years undercover, the Kozlov organization. You were investigating their money laundering operation through a network of legitimate businesses across 6 states. Marcus leaned forward. "The bank robbery was your exit strategy, wasn't it? A way to get arrested and extracted from an operation that had become too dangerous." Katerina was quiet for a long moment, and Marcus could almost see her weighing options, calculating risks, deciding how much truth to reveal. When she spoke, her voice carried the weight of someone who had been living lies for so long that the truth felt foreign. "You don't understand the situation you've stumbled into, detective. The less you know about this, the safer you and your family will be. Try me." She studied his face with the intensity of someone reading a complex document, cataloging his tells, measuring his trustworthiness in ways he couldn't begin to comprehend. 3 years ago, I infiltrated the Kozlov organization as Elena Vasquez, a money mover from Mexico City with connections to several drug cartels. The plan was textbook: gather evidence on their laundering operations, identify key players, document their methods, build an airtight federal case. She paused, and for the first time since he'd met her, Marcus detected a hint of uncertainty in her voice. What we discovered was that they weren't just washing money for drug cartels and organized crime. They were financing terrorist cells across 3 continents. Marcus felt his mouth go dry. Jesus Christ. The bank robbery was supposed to be my extraction, yes. But 72 hours ago, I received intelligence about an imminent attack, something massive. Kozlov's people have been moving unprecedented amounts of cash through their network to finance it, and I'm the only operative. Who knows the specific details of when and where? So tell us. Call your handler, contact the FBI. My handler is dead, Detective. Shot 3 times in his apartment in Washington, D.C. last Tuesday. My backup contact? Fatal car accident in Virginia yesterday morning. Except accidents don't usually involve professional kill teams and explosives. Katerina leaned forward for the first time since the interrogation began. The Kozlov organization has people everywhere. Federal agencies, local police, congressional staff, security contractors. I don't know who to trust anymore. The pieces clicked into place in Marcus's mind like tumblers in a lock. That's why you've been silent. You're not sure if we're clean. In my experience, Detective, paranoia is just good planning. She gestured around the stark room. This facility, your department, how many people know I'm here? The booking sergeant, a few patrol officers, my partner, the desk sergeant, probably. A couple of detectives who saw you being brought in. Too many. They'll know within hours, if they don't already. Marcus stood up abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. What kind of attack are we talking about? The kind that makes September 11th look like a rehearsal. Katerina's voice was matter-of-fact, which somehow made it more terrifying than if she'd been screaming. They've been planning it for 2 years. A coordinated strike on multiple infrastructure. Targets during the city's marathon next weekend. Power grid, water treatment facilities, emergency communication systems, transportation hubs. They want to cripple response capabilities while maximizing civilian casualties. How many people know about this? Now, just me. And you, Marcus paced to the small window, his mind racing through implications. Outside, the city continued its normal rhythm, unaware that its destruction was being planned in boardrooms and safe houses by people who saw it as nothing more than a strategic target. Traffic moved in predictable patterns. People walked to work, went to lunch, picked up their children from school. Why should I believe you? For all I know, you did go rogue. Maybe you're working with them now. Maybe this is all some elaborate story to buy time or throw us off the trail. Katerina reached slowly into her jacket pocket, moving deliberately to avoid triggering any defensive response from Marcus. She produced a small electronic device he didn't recognize, about the size of a car key fob, with a single red button and what looked like a GPS antenna. Because, Detective, if I was working with them, I wouldn't need to convince you of anything. I'd just activate this emergency beacon, and my extraction team would be here in 6 minutes with enough firepower to level this building. Instead, I'm trusting you with information that makes both of us targets. What do you need from me? Time, access to a secure computer with internet access, and someone who can verify intelligence without going through official channels that might be compromised. She met his eyes directly for the second time. The marathon is in 5 days. After that, it won't matter who was trustworthy and who wasn't. Marcus made a decision that would either save thousands of lives or end his career, and possibly his. Life. My brother-in-law works private security for defense contractors. Military background, high-level security clearance, completely off the books. Can you work with that? It's a start. And the money from the robbery? $2 million doesn't just disappear. For the first time since he'd met her, Katerina almost smiled. Evidence. Every bill is marked, tagged, and tracked. The money can be traced directly back to the terrorist funding network through a dozen shell companies and offshore accounts. When this is over, it'll put away dozens of people across multiple organizations. Marcus looked at the woman across from him, no longer just a bank robber or even a federal agent, but someone who had spent 3 years of her life becoming someone else entirely, living among killers and terrorists, all to prevent something unthinkable from happening to innocent people. Agent Novak Katerina, I need you to know that if you're lying to me, if this is some elaborate con game, then you'll arrest me again, and this time I'll deserve it. She stood up slowly, testing whether he would try to stop her. But detective, in 5 days, when families are lining the streets cheering their loved ones across the finish line, when children are holding homemade signs and elderly people are wrapped in blankets, waiting for their grandchildren to complete their first marathon, remember that moment. Remember what that means to people. Marcus nodded slowly, his decision crystallizing. What happens now? Now we disappear. Both of us. Because the moment you walked in here knowing my real name, you became part of this operation. Katerina, move toward the door. I hope you said goodbye to your normal life, detective. For the next few days, we're both ghosts. As they prepared to leave the interrogation room, Marcus realized that the quiet woman who had said nothing for 4 hours had just changed everything. Not with force or threats or dramatic revelations, but with truth delivered in careful, measured doses to someone she decided to trust. Sarah was waiting in the hallway, her expression a mixture of confusion and concern. Marcus, what's going on? I got a call from the FBI saying we need to release the suspect immediately, no questions asked. It's complicated, Marcus replied, already thinking about how to explain this to his captain. Agent Novak, this is my partner, Detective Chun. Katerina studied Sarah with the same calculating intensity she'd used on Marcus. Can she be trusted? With my life, Marcus said without hesitation. Good, because that's exactly what we're asking her to do. Outside the station, the city hummed with its usual energy. Rush hour traffic was beginning to build. Office workers were heading home to their families. Students were gathering at coffee shops. None of them knew that their lives hung in the balance of decisions being made by a handful of people they would never meet. In 5 days, Katerina Novak would either be a hero whose name would never appear in the newspapers, or she would be a footnote in a tragedy that would reshape how Americans thought about safety and security. For now, though, she was just a woman walking down a sidewalk next to 2 detectives who had chosen to believe her story, carrying the weight of knowledge that could save thousands of lives if she was right, or destroy multiple careers if she was wrong. As they disappeared into the evening crowd, Marcus couldn't help but think about all the people in the world carrying secrets, like this operatives and agents and analysts. People who had given up their real names and normal lives to do work that no one would ever thank them for, fighting battles that most people would never know had been fought. Some wars, he realized, were fought not with armies and weapons, but with patience, precision, and the willingness to become invisible in plain sight. The quiet ones, the ones who said nothing until the moment their words could change everything. The interrogation was over. The real work was just beginning. The end.